Good morning. Let's sing a morning song together out of the gray hymnal, hymn number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. If you're joining us online, you'll find the lyrics posted in the chat. And here in the room, the lyrics will also be posted up on the screen. If using the hymn book is something you'd rather not do, or use the hymn book, I invite you to join in singing together, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. Singing. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation Worship Service. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and to this congregation, whether you're joining us online or in person. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We're so glad that you are here today. I'm Des McGarren, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, Reverend Sara Lewis, the Director of Community and Faith Development, and Troy Fisher, our music director. Here's a few things I would like to share about our service today. We are streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, and the service is being recorded. For those here in the sanctuary, you can see subtitles on the screen in front here. We are a multi-generational community, and we welcome the company of youths, kids, babies, teens right here in the sanctuary. We also have fluffy chairs available up front here if anyone prefers. There is also nursery care and a storytime program for children in the classroom wing. We are grateful for the many hands that helped make worship happen this morning. Thank you to all who contribute in so many ways. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions. For those online, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. For those in person, feel free to stay for coffee and fellowship in the Commons. At 11:15 today, please join in our Easter egg hunt at Berry Park, just down the street. There will be prizes. And a reminder that next Sunday we begin holding our worship services in the classrooms as the sanctuary ductwork is being replaced. We'll be in the classrooms for sure on April 16 and 23, and maybe even April 30th. Seating in the classrooms is limited, so if your spiritual needs can be met virtually, we invite you to join us online. There are many things happening at Olympia UU. Check out the Tuesday electronic update or the website for the most up-to-date information. Now, let us open our hearts and minds as we prepare for worship. It is good to be together. This morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join me as we light our chalices together with an excerpt from In Our Circle Again by Sherry Woodbury. Here we are in our circle again, a circle of vision and reflection, a forum for deciding and empowering. Here we are at the base of another bridge, another space spanning the shores of today and tomorrow, beckoning us to cross the chasm one day at a time. We are here in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows, faced and befriended. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Mary, and I use she, her pronouns. Our opening words this Easter morning are offered by Vanessa Rush Southern and Allison Jacks, titled, What Gives Us Life? Life is complicated and uncertain and gorgeous, with some things that we can count on. It has seasons of struggle and seasons of delight, and sometimes the two blow in and bloom simultaneously. Like now, maybe always. And here we are together, all of us from different corners of the world and different families here. Breathing together, questing together, holding each other through it all, laughing and singing in the face of it. If there is a journey to liberation, if there is a way to live resurrection, I think it is like this. May what holds us in bondage to death or loss or hurt or sadness or literal heartbreaking limits be released. And what gives us life, hope, joy, rebirth, feel invited to claim us, and may we claim it. Sinking our roots down into what grounds us, reaching toward the sun. Flowering into this season, all of whose traditions witness to life more abundant, claiming us, after a season of loss and winter, struggles of heart and mind and spirit. And may we open our hearts to the abundance of creation that surrounds and sustains us. Come, let us worship together.
For our opening song, let's stay seated and we'll do a chant together. If you want to find the lyrics, they're in the Till Hymn book, hymn number 1048, or they'll be posted up here on the screen or in the chat if you're joining us online. And they're in Latin. Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, which means where love and charity abound, God is there. You can join me as you get familiar with it. Here we go. Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi es, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas, Deus ibi es, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas, Deus ibi es. One more time. Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas, Deus ibi est. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Mary Magdalene. You may have heard of me. I lived over 2,000 years ago, but I've come to tell you a story today, the story of Easter as I experienced it. But before I tell you that story, I should also tell you there are a lot of people who say that I'm crazy. Legend has it that I lived for a long time in a cave all by myself, and, well, when you do something like that, people might think you're crazy. But I have a story to tell. When I was a young woman before the cave, I knew this amazing man that you know as Jesus. He was a great teacher. In fact, he told amazing stories. And he was a great healer. In fact, he reached out to heal those that others wouldn't even touch. He fed the hungry. In fact, he ate with people that others said he shouldn't eat with, people of different faiths and even tax collectors. And you know how people feel about tax collectors. And he was a great prophet. And a prophet is someone who can see the truth of what is happening and tell others how to make it better. And he did that. He told us how to make it better. He told us how we could create a community of the Spirit within ourselves and amongst ourselves, how we could build strong community like this community here today, community that would be stronger even than the Romans who ruled our land. It was hard. The Romans had controlled our land for all of my life, and they did not like to hear what Jesus was saying or what we, his followers, were saying. And so they did something awful. They made sure that he died in such a scary way that it would scare us all and we would stop saying the message that he taught. Well, that gets us to the story of Easter and how it happened. He died on a Friday. And after his death, some of the men took his body down and they put it in a tomb. But Sabbath began at sundown. Sabbath was the holy day. We were all Jewish, Jesus and us followers. And so on the holy day, we would not clean or touch a body. And so his body lay in the tomb for one whole day and 2 nights. And then us women got up the next day, it was a Sunday, and we began to go together to the tomb to clean and prepare his body. That wasn't strange back then. Back then there weren't morticians or caretakers. And in fact, the family and the friends, the women, friends and family of a dead person would gather together to clean and prepare a body. It was an honor to do so. We would say prayers over the body. And so we were heading to do this act of love for our friend and our teacher. And as we walked to the tomb, we were talking about who was going to move that heavy stone, the stone that blocked the entrance to the tomb. It was very heavy, and it was too heavy for one of us, maybe even for all of us working together. And so we were talking about that, and as we got to the tomb, we saw that the stone was already rolled away. And then we entered the tomb, and here the story has a couple different versions. Some say we saw one angel, some say we saw two. Some say that we were so scared by those angels that we ran away and we didn't tell anybody. But I ask you, if that had happened, how would anyone know the story? Of course we told the story of what we saw. What we saw and what we heard was the good news that our friend and our teacher was living on. And we shared that good news. We shared that good news of how we could continue to build that community of the Spirit within ourselves and amongst ourselves. And in my opinion, that's the real miracle of the Easter story, that we weren't so scared that we stopped sharing the story, that we weren't so scared that we stopped building the community. Now, some ask me about the other part of the miracle story. Did Jesus really come back to life? And I, now, as a wise old woman, have this to say about that. Anytime someone that you love dies and you continue to remember them, they live on in your heart and your memory and your actions. And we loved Jesus and we learned from him. And he did live on in the community that we built. In fact, even today, he lives on because his message of love and forgiveness, of greeting the stranger without judgment, lives on. And anytime someone who's inspired by his story helps to heal the sick, comfort the sad, connect with the lonely, then the miracle continues. But what do I know? People say I'm crazy. I'm Reverend Sara Lewis. I use she, her pronouns. The Easter story is often told as being about Jesus, but Jesus was not alone. He was part of a community. And so the story of what happened to him is also the story of how his community reacted and coped. In the story as it is told, the apostles react in many different ways: doubt, betrayal, fear, despair, and more. It's a portrait of all the difficult reactions and feelings that will be present in a community, or that even might all be churning inside an individual during difficult and challenging times. And I find myself most drawn to Mary Magdalene, a female follower of Jesus and thus not accepted as one of the official apostles. This figure, so often maligned and speculated about, her reactions by witnessing the crucifixion and weeping there, and then by going to the tomb to perform ritual acts of grief, were an expression of emotion and the capacity to allow herself to be with her emotions. While the male disciples were up in their heads, worried about the future and what everything meant, Mary Magdalene and the other female followers of Jesus are shown being in their hearts. Now, this is a gender stereotype, of course, so let's just acknowledge that all people of all genders can react in all of these ways. But in our long history of patriarchal hierarchy, the intellectualized and thinking approach has been identified with men and seen to be better, and we have cut ourselves off from our deep capacity to feel and hold emotional space. And so I find Mary Magdalene an example, an archetype for me to follow. Just as she wept to have her teacher taken from her, I too mourn and grieve. I mourn and grieve different things. I find my heart breaking for the way our human ways harm each other. Each instance of gun violence, each new piece of anti-trans legislation, each war, and all the systemic ways that we harm each other with racism and economic exploitation and all the rest. And then my heart breaks for our planet, our home, to be alive in the sixth great extinction, and to see so many species and habitats and precious, irreplaceable life disappear forever. And then we have those natural or semi-natural disasters that we do not control, but we can make worse. We've been living through pandemic. Yes, there is so much to weep for. And so I come to my own practice, my own personal spiritual practice and my communal religious community practice with all of this weeping and this grief. And I come not to be comforted, not to be patted on the back and told that everything will be okay. I come to go deep and to create the space within me to hold it all. When we are faced with so much for our hearts to hold, one option is for us to build greater heart capacity, to practice stretching, to practice growing. And through the expansion of our hearts, we find that we can hold it all tenderly and with love, and that even a breaking heart loves deeply. I've been reading Thich Nhat Hanh recently, and he describes it this way in his book, Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. Quote, "When suffering is emerging, adopt another attitude. Don't try to run away. This is my recommendation. Stay where you are and welcome it, whether it is anger or frustration or a longing for something that is not satisfied. Be ready to say hello to it. Be ready to embrace it tenderly and welcome it. It does not bother you anymore, and just like the bitter melon, it is healing you." Thich Nhat Hanh goes on to describe how this practice of embracing our suffering and learning from it grows our capacity for peace and compassion. And that peace and compassion is what is needed for us to become healers of the world. We grow in this way not by running away, not by pushing away things like grief, anger, and suffering, but by expanding our capacity to hold them. So here I am on Easter, a day when many celebrate this story of rejoicing, and I'm just holding space for the suffering. If that is where you are, there is no need to rush through it. Simply being with our hard feelings, simply saying hello to those feelings, embracing them tenderly and living with them. That is enough. And as you tenderly embrace your difficult feelings, you may find that it is healing you and that you are growing. Growing in yourself and growing in your capacity to hold hard things and still have peace and compassion in your heart. Growing in your capacity to be a force of love in this world. May that be so.
Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. The offering collected here does two things. It supports the ongoing work of Olympia UU, together with our regular pledges. This offering also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. Our Share the Plate organization for March and April is hands-on personal empowerment, hope. This is their message about their work.
Good morning, OUC. Thanks for having me. My name is Rachel, and I'm the Executive Director for the Hope Garden Project, located in Shelton, Washington. Hope engages Mason County youth to become empowered, productive members of their community in a world they will inherit through garden-based education. Currently, we run 4 different programs. During the school year, we offer programming at the middle school level, where youth learn about health, sustainability, and steward the garden located at Evergreen Elementary. We also work with the Life Skills High School program, where older youth living with neurodivergence get to learn how to build, grow, and maintain the garden located outside of their classroom. They also learn how to make healthy recipes that they can do at home. Through an agricultural model, the Older Youth Employment Program is designed to offer young adults the opportunity to have their first job experience in a safe and supportive environment, while at the same time exposing them to nutrition, health, and cooking. By creating opportunities for youth to gain skills in communication, leadership, and team building, they learn how to be the kind of humans they want to be. We offer this program during the school year and during the summer. Our school year program is 2 afternoons a week, and our high school program during the summer is 8 weeks long, for 5 hours a day, 3 days a week. This is our most intensive program and the one that is the most rewarding and exciting. But all of our programs are really wonderful, and we wouldn't be able to do it without support, like the kind of support that we are getting from you all. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen. You can also mail a check to Olympia UU or place your offering in one of the baskets being passed by the ushers. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
Thank you so much for your generous gifts of music and otherwise. We came together this morning bringing everything that is in our lives. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of our lives and our community as we place stones in the water of community. You will hear a drumbeat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community. So right now, let's just all take a deep breath together, in and out. And let's open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives and our communities today. We extend our hearts to our Jewish siblings who are celebrating Passover this week, the festival of freedom, even as tensions in the Middle East rise once again. May we celebrate freedom for people, all people, on this day. And for those online, I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. This is a time to share everything that you wish, joys and sorrows and whatever else is shared from your heart. Those in the sanctuary can see your sharing on the screen. And for those on site today, I invite you to come forward if there is something that you wish to bring into this community. You may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. So let's hear the heartbeat of our community and reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share today. We'll place one more stone in the water for all that has been shared online, shared from the heart. And one more stone placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken this day. Please be in whatever way is comfortable for you for prayer and meditation. This prayer is offered by Reverend Sue Eyre. Spirit of life and love, we have gathered here in search of answers to hard questions. We have come in search of understanding, in search of community. We have come in search of hope and healing. Let this be a place not only of searching, but of discovery. Let this be a place not only of learning, but of wisdom. Let this be a place not only of meeting, but of connection. And let this be a place where healing fosters giving and hope fosters service. This is our prayer, that we may create here a circle of love, ever expanding, ever growing, as we seek to know you, the source of our being. Amen, and blessed be. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
Today's first reading is from the book Transitions, Making Sense of Life Changes by William Bridges. Bridges writes, "Moreover, the experience of being in transition is itself changing. Being in between marriages or careers takes on a particularly painful quality when those things themselves are changing profoundly. It is as if we launched out from a riverside dock to cross to a landing on the opposite shore, only to discover in midstream that the landing was no longer there. And when we looked back at the other shore, we saw that the dock we had left from had broken loose and was heading downstream. Stuck in transition between situations, relationships, and identities that are also in transition, many Americans are caught in a semi-permanent condition of transitionality."
Our second reading is from Holy Week and a Time of Pandemic, written in April 2022 by theologian and university chaplain Bruce Epperly. Holy Week is a lifetime in miniature, just as our time with pandemic is a lifetime in miniature. We almost need a month to let the events of Holy Week sink in spiritually and emotionally, just as we need contemplative retreats to let the reality of the past year sink in. As we look hopefully beyond the pandemic, we must realize what we have lost and also claim the new insights about our nation we have found. It is easy to go from waving palms and shouting Hosanna to singing Christ the Lord is risen today, Alleluia, without taking account of religious conflict, betrayal, injustice, agony, and hopelessness that accompany our Easter celebrations. Trusting re-emergence. So Holy Week is a lifetime in miniature. I think of Holy Week kind of like that week in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, where in 6 days God creates, well, everything. And then God rests on day 7. Holy Week is a week like that, which many of us read as a story, as a metaphor, as a prompt for reflection about how that story relates to our lives and our times. The story of Holy Week begins on Palm Sunday. Well, before that, the ancient story tells that Jesus traveled the countryside, teaching about love and justice, seeing and healing those who were on the margins of society. When he enters Jerusalem before Passover begins, he is welcomed as a prophet. He is greeted by an adoring crowd, a joyous celebration. The people place cloaks and palm branches on the ground to ease his path. Jesus' next act is to challenge once again the religious and governmental authorities. When he enters the temple in Jerusalem to pray, he finds merchants and money changers at tables in the temple. And in a rage, he overturns those tables, the tables of those who are buying and selling in the temple, claiming that instead it is a house of prayer. And for the next few days, Jesus does what Jesus did. He teaches in parables, he heals, he prepares for the Passover rituals. And he is repeatedly challenged by religious and governmental authorities, and he regularly pushes back with love and justice. And when the day comes for the Passover Seder on that Thursday, Jesus and his followers go to Gethsemane. As some disciples gather the Passover foods, Jesus asks others to keep watch as he prays. And he despairs when they are unable to stay awake again and again. And by this time, Jesus has pushed against religious and governmental leaders for years, challenging and questioning their power. I think he knew that the cost of this would probably be his life. And he knew that his ending would likely be brutal, because crucifixion was a punishment reserved for political and religious agitators. He wonders as he prays, how am I going to get through this? Do I really have to? Jesus questions and doubts. And on this same day, Jesus is betrayed by Judas, betrayed for gold. When Jesus returns from praying, when he returns to his disciples for the Passover Seder, he washes their feet in a ritual of humility and care. They share a meal, the ritual which Christians and Catholics practice now as communion. The word Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, or command. That day is called Maundy Thursday because of the instruction that Jesus gave his disciples at this Last Supper, that we should love one another. Later, Jesus is abandoned by his disciples, one of whom denies ever knowing him. Good Friday is the day that Jesus is killed, a day of suffering, humiliation, hopelessness, and death. The darkness of the tomb where Jesus' body was placed is a real and metaphorical symbol of that day. There is no light, or the light seems very far away. Holy Saturday is a day for mourning, a day of uncertainty and suspense. What comes next? Will the darkness ever lift? How do we make sense of what has just happened? And then Easter arrives. Jesus lives, all in a week. Now, whether you believe Jesus was actually resurrected, or perhaps that too is a metaphor, the message of Jesus certainly lives on today. From the darkness, life reemerges. So this story of Holy Week, the story across a week, is a story of joy and celebration. It's also a story of challenge, betrayal, humiliation, grief, darkness, and resurrection. This is a story of humanity. It's a story that is repeated again and again in our lives as individuals and as communities. Beginnings and endings and new beginnings. Out of death comes life. The story may take a week, or a month, or a year, or a few years, or a lifetime. The cycle continues. This story, this cycle of Holy Week, can also help us begin to make sense of the past few years. We've encountered a global pandemic, increased awareness of racial injustice and hate crimes, climate chaos, war, and unrest around the world. Bruce Epperly, the author of our second reading, also wrote, "We are in the center of a maelstrom of uncertainty." A maelstrom of uncertainty. Not only that, we are in the middle of that whirlpool, looking across the river for a dock that has disappeared and looking back to see that the one we left has floated downriver. We are all together in the middle of this whirlpool. Some of us are looking back, wishing that we could just return to the joy of Palm Sunday. And some of us are in Maundy Thursday, questioning, wondering how we're going to get through this, and really, do we have to? And some of us are at Good Friday, feeling the grief and the loss, the darkness and the despair. And others of us are just wondering, are we there yet? Can't we just get to Easter celebration? Can't we just move on? Now, I'd say that collectively, we're at Holy Saturday, mourning, uncertain, waiting. But in some cultures, Holy Saturday is a day of preparation, gathering the food and the other items for the coming Easter celebration. So perhaps this can be a time of preparation, a time when we begin to make sense of what has happened and discern the lessons that we need that will help us move ahead. What do we need to learn as individuals and as a nation? This can be a time when we learn to listen to each other and to discern where we are, where we each are, offering compassion and comfort for all of the feelings. We can gather in community for reminders that even now there is joy. We can encourage each other to pause and listen to what our hearts need. We can help each other refuel our spirits so we have the energy and stamina for whatever it is that lies ahead. And we can invite each other into the spiritual practice of hope. In many Christian communities, people gather on Easter morning to watch the sunrise. It is a reminder that the light returns, that we can trust its re-emergence into our world. It is a reminder that we are seeds planting our roots deep in the earth, reaching for the sun. As we move into this day, this holy day, may we notice the light within us, between us, and beyond us. May you feel your roots go deep as you reach for the sun. And on this day, may you find the light of the world this Easter Sunday.
Let's join together in singing our closing hymn out of the Gray Hymnal, hymn number 381, From All That Dwell Below the Skies. If you're joining us online, you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. And here in the room, the lyrics will also be posted up on the screen. Let's sing together.
If you are online and have a chalice or candle, please join us as we extinguish our chalice with these words from Thomas Merton. You do not need to know precisely what is happening or exactly where it is all going. What you need is to recognize the possibilities and challenges offered by this present moment and to embrace them with courage, faith, and hope. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love. Happy Easter.
Let's sing together our unison benediction. And just before we do, I'd just like to make an announcement that we're going to be clearing the chairs out of here for the ductwork to be done. And as you're leaving today, if you could help by stacking the chairs into stacks of 5, if that's something you feel up to doing, then it'll make it easier to roll them all out of here. Let's sing together our unison benediction. That was a nice low key we chose to descend into.